It is one of humanity's greatest conundrums. It's been called many things throughout the ages. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the missing link. But one elusive fact remains. Is it real? And if so, what does it want? Where does it come from? Today on a very special AIB Presents, we attempt to unearth the mystery of the mighty Bigfoot. The legend of Bigfoot, or the legend of a massive human-like creature, has captured the imagination across cultures and for centuries. From films, to books, to coffee mugs, it seems like Bigfoot is everywhere, and yet, nowhere. Because what remains so perplexing about the elusive creature is the lack of any skeletal remains. For most, that's not a big deal, but for me, seeing is believing. It's a rainy day in the foothills of the North Georgia mountains. I've been given a story assignment to see if the infamous legend is real or the stuff bedtime stories are made of. My quest has led me to the Sasquatch Museum, located in Cherry Log, Georgia, and I intend to find answers. To begin my research, I listened to documented audio evidence. Followed by a marathon of film screenings. The information is riveting. I've become somewhat consumed by this creature. Is it real? A hoax? Or just a facet of the imagination? I need more answers.
Do you think there's any Bigfoots in Georgia? Yeah, you're right. There are Bigfoots in Georgia.
Enter Dave Bakara, a self-professed Bigfoot lover and owner of the Sasquatch Museum. Dave is adamant that Bigfoot is no hoax, and he's heard dozens of stories from local citizens who claim to have seen the creature.
There was a very horrifying encounter by several Bigfoots spotted by a fellow named Todd Kelly up in Amicalola State Park. They actually ran him out of the forest. He got through one day and one evening on his Appalachian hike adventure, and they descended upon him during the day. He was so scared at night. They were around his tent, kind of mumbling to each other in whatever language they speak, and he got up the next morning and packed his stuff and left and hasn't come back. That happened in March of 2013.
Just to be sure of his credentials, I gave Dave a short Bigfoot pop quiz.
Hey, my name's Will. I'm doing a story on Bigfoot, and I saw a sign out there, Bigfoot Museum. Are you the guy to talk to?
I'm the owner. I'm David Bakara.
Oh, okay. Nice to meet you.
Hey, Will?
Yeah, Will.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, so, do you mind giving me a tour?
Sure, yeah. We built this place about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And it encompasses all the information about Bigfoot from all over the country. We bought it in one place, so it's a little bit easier for skeptics to get an idea if these things are real or not.
Okay, well, I'm a little bit of a skeptic myself, so, what are these maps? Are these actual sightings of Bigfoot?
Yep, these are just some general maps of sightings in Kentucky, Georgia, and Tennessee, and North Carolina. And this is just lets folks know you're going on an expedition right here. And but the wall behind you over there, those are all folks that are Bigfoot researchers from the years gone by. Some of them are PhDs, biologists, anthropologists, and a lot of those folks are the ones that started off for us.
Okay, well, I want to see the real deal stuff. Footprints, claws, the real stuff. Can you show me where that's at?
Absolutely. Come, we'll take a little walk around the corner.
Okay, awesome. Whoa. This is pretty cool. All right, now this is what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I mean. Are these real?
These are real. These are copies of real casts. Some of them were cast by police officers. These were cast by a retired anthropologist. It's nice to have the right and the left foot. Some of them are actually born or maybe injured at some point in their life, so they're irregular shaped. To really let you know that these things are real living creatures that do sustain injuries. And these are the famous cripple footprints, and cast in Bossburg, Washington back in the late 60s.
Wow.
Right foot is misshapen, and the right foot seems to be a little bit better. And these were cast by anthropologist Grover Krantz.
Wow. So this is literally where the name Bigfoot comes from. I mean, these are massive. So what goes into, how did you guys get these?
The professor of anthropology at Idaho State University, Jeff Meldrum, was nice enough to make us copies of the originals, which are under lock and key in his personal collection. So we have casts here from all over the United States. And as you can see, none of them look alike. They're all a little bit different. And that's because, like us, the Bigfoots are all different.
Okay.
So I think it would be suspect if they were all the same, but they're not. They're all different. Some have splayed toes. Some have their toes a little closer together, but none of them look like they've been in a shoe. And they walk very heavily on their pads of their feet. A lot different shaped foot because they don't operate like we do because of their massive amount of weights. They have what they call a mid-tarsal brake. So you'll see a very heavy pad imprint, and then the brake, instead of at the toes, the brake is about mid-foot when the foot picks up.
Wow.
So they look similar to the kind of footprint we leave, but they're actually morphologically-wise, they're much different.
Okay, well, this is giving me a sense of what these must look like. Do you have any replicas in here we could check out? I actually want to see one in front of me.
A Bigfoot?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Follow me.
All right. Whoa. You weren't kidding.
So this is Raven. Raven's the star of the museum. A retired police officer saw this standing at the end of his driveway on his way to work in 2006. Was so taken back. It was such a good sighting of it.
Yeah.
He went to work and told all his friends what he'd seen, and they didn't believe him. So they didn't understand what he was talking about. They couldn't visualize it. So he went home and spent 2 years making Raven in his living room so he could show everybody exactly what he saw. So when you look at Raven right here, you're looking at what the Bigfoot he saw. You're looking at exactly what he saw.
How many pounds do you think that Raven
An animal
is?
this size is going to weigh anywhere between 500 and 800 pounds.
Wow. Wow. So this is the Sasquatch. Interesting.
Yeah, you can see how broad. Most of them are reported with little to no neck. His trapezoid muscles are so strong. Very broad, very thick. Most of the big ones can have a width of 3.5 to 4 feet wide, 3 foot deep at the chest. This one, Raven's 8.5 feet tall. You can notice his arms are a little bit longer, almost to his knee, so he's a little bit longer in the arm than a human would be.
Does this scare some of the kids that come through here?
Once in a while, a child will be a little bit afraid when they see Raven. When Darren Mingy made him, he made sure not to make him scary, because when he saw the Bigfoot, when he saw this, it wasn't giving him a scary look. It was looking at him as a very wise, kind of somber look.
Yeah.
So, he's so big and he's so powerful and so dark colored that it so easily blends in with stuff. And for some kids, he's just a little scary. He's just so big.
Yeah, he's huge.
It's kind of hard not to be scared.
Well, some pretty awesome stuff you got in here. And do you mind we go down there, ask you some questions? I got one more thing planned for you.
Absolutely.
All right.
I had seen the museum. Now it was time to get to the heart of the Bigfoot myth. Dave's love for Bigfoot developed at an early age.
So my brother and I, when we were about 12 and 10, we went to go see a movie called The Legend of Boggy Creek. This tagline was based on true events or based on a true story. And after we saw that, my brother and I were just like, wow, these things are real? Because it wasn't a movie, it was a docudrama. And they would reenact actual events. And it was such a fantastic notion to think that there's these giant, hairy, biped creatures, not cavemen, but giant, they weren't people-sized. These things were 8, 9, 10 feet tall. How could they be out there? So it was just an incredible mystery, and we've been hooked since we were kids.
The mystery of Bigfoot exploded in the late 1960s when filmmakers Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin captured footage taken in a North California forest of a massive, hairy, ape-like creature.
Still the best piece of footage. Who would have thought that the first piece of footage would be the best? We still use that to measure film now. Oh, it's not as good as the Patterson-Gimlin. Oh, it's not as long as the Patterson-Gimlin. It's not as clear. And they're still squeezing information out of that film. With the use of computers and digital enhancement, they're able to go in there and clean up a lot of the blur that's in that film, and they're able to make it crisper and clearer and pull more detail out of that film. Disney executives looked at that film when it first came out and they said, we couldn't make that. They didn't have the technology to make a suit like that. They still don't. So to make a suit like that, the feet, they're able to zoom in on the feet. You can see all 5, it's not a boot, it's 5 toes. You can actually see the toes as she's walking, the toes come up to come down to grasp the dirt. So it's too bad that that bar is set so high, because you'd think by now, with thermal and night vision and everybody out there with cameras, you think by now we'd have better, but it's still the best footage out there, the Patterson-Gimlin.
To this day, though most people carry smartphones, and one might think Bigfoot might photobomb someone's camping trip selfies, Dave insists the 1967 film remains the best evidence that Bigfoot lives.
But when you have an actual film, it's almost, you can't do anything with, especially something back from the 60s. So we're still getting great footage. You have to sort through so many hoaxes and obvious hoaxes, and some of them are done by real professionals. It's really hard to tell. And some of it is so good, it's the real thing, but there's so much junk coming out that it just waters down the good footage that's coming out. So yeah, we're getting it. I think a lot of researchers, they already know they're real. There's just too much evidence. Especially, I think the best evidence still is witness testimony.
And Dave has heard hundreds of Bigfoot stories from eyewitnesses.
There's a misconception that these things are rarely seen. What we really have, they're rarely reported. They're seen every day in every state. Since we opened this place up a year and 3 months ago, there are so many reports coming in that we couldn't keep track of them. I was writing them down. We had to mount a local map. And when you see just the map of the maybe 25 square miles of this area, I've got 35, 40 pegs. That's just what's come to us. Think of all the ones that haven't even come in here yet to tell us. So there are so many sightings in Georgia, and there's nothing that unique about this area. It's woods. We have hilly terrain, but we have the same terrain in Kentucky and Tennessee, southern Ohio, North, South Carolina. So in my opinion, that there's just as many sightings there are here. People are very tight-lipped about it. They don't want to be laughed at. There's a stigma attached to it. So just from our firsthand knowledge of people coming in and telling us, police officers, nurses, business owners, glassmen, people that are on the roads early in the morning on their way to their work, or going maybe to remote locations to finish construction. These are the guys that usually run into these animals, surprise them. And these people aren't lying. You can tell when a person's relating. There's no substitute for a man or woman standing right in front of you and telling what they saw. And as they start to relive the emotion, and you realize you're standing in front of a person that's telling you the truth. As amazing as the story, incredible it may be, they're still telling you the truth. And there's no substitute for that.
Yet, some of the sightings border on the paranormal.
Had a fella come in here about 3.5, 4 months ago, works on a farm right between our museum and Amicalola State Park. And he brought his boss with him. And he says, I have to come in here, I have to tell you this story, something that happened to me about 3 years ago, he said. He said, I brought my boss with me because I want you to know that I didn't come here to tell you a story. He introduced me to his boss. He said, this guy's been working for me for about 13 years. He's as straight as they come, straight as an arrow. I didn't see what he saw, but I'm just here to tell you that this fellow that works for me is not a liar. And he told me that he got up early one morning, went on his back porch, which overlooked the farmland, and there's a big fence that went along the back of the property. He got up, went out to have a cigarette and a cup of coffee, sat on his back porch, and he sees this large, hairy creature come off the side of the hill, come along the fence, and it moved along the fence line right in front of him. He says, but it wasn't moving its arms or its legs. Everything was perfectly still. He says, I couldn't see its feet, but I could see that it wasn't moving, its arms or its leg. He said it seemed to be levitating. Came off, went right along the outside of the fence, on the other side of the fence, and then it finally never looked at me, turned away, and then headed towards the field. As it went away, I could see that it wasn't moving anything. It wasn't taking little steps, it wasn't taking any steps. And he said before it got to the woods, it dematerialized right in front of him.
But could this be? Scott Lang, executive director of Atlanta's Wild Animal Rescue effort, claims otherwise.
I have never seen or encountered or seen any evidence of a Sasquatch here,
not a biologist,
here or anywhere else, speaking as the executive director of the Aware Wildlife Center.
Dave insists Bigfoot is no sleight of hand fabrication, but an animal well suited for rough terrain survival.
If you know your science, we don't belong here. They are perfectly natural. Or the only thing that if you took everything away from us, and if people say, well, we've evolved, what, over 200 years? Nothing evolves in 200 years. It usually takes thousands of years. So a few hundred years ago, we were still wearing animal furs, but we were still building fire. We're still cooking we were still taking shelter in caves. So we just don't run around naked, killing things and eating them raw.
The Sasquatch Museum is a storehouse of all things Bigfoot. It is also a haven for curiosity seekers and story swappers alike.
I think one of the main reasons we built this museum is because there's so many folks out there. I'm not the only researcher out there. I'm just one of 1,000. There's folks in every state of the union. And not to mention other continents. There's folks in other countries doing the same thing we do. And everybody's doing great work. But we have a hard time, for some reason, bringing it all together. So that's really what this place is taking a lot of other people's work, including my own, and bring it together in a concise package so people can see everything brought together, and really the evidence is overwhelming, proving the existence of these creatures.
When we return, I meet with a scholar of fossils and footprints, real-life iconologist Tony Martin, as the search for Bigfoot continues. Dave Bakara, curator of the Sasquatch Museum, may have interesting stories that give credence to the myth of Bigfoot, but questions remain. Questions I needed to pose to a scientist who studies what animals leave behind. So I decided to meet with iconologist Anthony Martin, who has been studying animal traces for more than 20 years.
So are there a lot of deer in Georgia, and how do you go about tracking them?
Well, one of the things I look for is where have they left their antler rubbings.
Okay.
So those trees right over there, for instance, those little saplings.
Let's take a closer look.
Yeah, so those right there, that shows some of them. Here, you can see where this would have been a male deer rubbing its antlers up and down.
If Bigfoot is real, then it seems there should be more compelling evidence than just films and stories. I wanted to pick Dr. Martin's mind and find out the scientific approach to tracking an animal of this magnitude.
In North Georgia, for instance, I've talked to several people who have seen what they think were mountain lions, and that's not impossible. So I'd be very interested in going to some of those places where they had those sightings and look for the evidence of a mountain lion. One of the first things I would do is look for their tracks, and their tracks are about that big around. They're big, big tracks. I've tracked mountain lions before. They're relatively easy to track because they are big animals. And with those tracks, one of the ways you can identify those versus, say, a domestic dog is they have a round compression shape. They don't normally show claws. They have 3 lobes in that rear heel pad. Their front 2 toes are a little asymmetrical, but you really look for that round compression shape, and that tells you that's a cat versus, say, a big, fluffy domestic dog that would be more oval shaped. I would also look for scat, and mountain lion scat is unmistakable.
Could it have been a mountain lion that people were seeing in North Georgia? Where was the Bigfoot den? Or the tracks?
So there's some fresh deer tracks right there. I can press my thumb right there and see how that compares to how it looks versus that. And I go, yeah, that was yesterday.
Yeah.
And you can see there are mud cracks that a few of them developed from it since it's dried a little bit since yesterday. But otherwise, yeah, that's pretty fresh. It also rained a little bit yesterday, and I don't see any raindrop impressions.
So I don't mean to sound redundant, but it's kind of like the scientific process. You notice this, and then you notice this, and you put 2 and 2 together.
You got it.
Yeah.
So I teach a class to first-year students at Emory on tracking, and that's exactly what I tell them. I say, you're being scientists. What you're doing is you got an observation, you test the observation, and then you use lots and lots of evidence to test that observation, and the whole time you're asking yourself, how could I be wrong?
Yeah.
And that's how scientists, I think, that's something a lot of people may not understand about real scientists, is that we're always trying to prove ourselves wrong.
Yeah.
So once we get to the point where I would bet a 6-pack of my favorite craft beer on that.
Right.
Now I'm getting sure.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting pretty sure. But usually what we're trying to do is say, how could that not be a deer? But with this, yeah, that's a deer.
Yeah.
Tony explains the notion of cryptozoology.
It's a study of literally hidden animals. So animals that might have escaped our attention, whether we're just not in the right place at the right time, or they are active at night, or we don't have cameras in the right places, or we're just not searching in the right habitat, or they're rare, or all of the above. So that's something where there are zoologists who look for animals that, say, indigenous people might tell them this animal lives in this area. Then bona fide, well-trained zoologists might go out there, set up camera traps, look for scat, look for tracks, and other sign before you might be able to get lucky enough to take a photo.
I recalled what Dave had said about Bigfoot before and its ability to stay hidden.
In my opinion, they're instructed to stay hidden from us. A lot of people think that they're afraid of us, but after you hear a few witness accounts of the abilities, the strength, and the speed of these things, and some folks will have a gun pointed at one, and some hunters, and they'll say, my God, I was afraid to pull the trigger because I didn't have any firepower big enough to even hurt it. All I was going to do is make it mad. So once you start to see these patterns, you realize how big, fast, and strong they are. These things aren't afraid of us. In my opinion, and some of the other researchers I speak to, they're instructed to not show themselves to us. I don't know why. We have theories out there, but I don't have one strong enough to really share with anybody. But yeah, in my opinion, they are instructed that they're to remain hidden.
I've been out here for hours looking for this thing. Obviously, Dave's a big believer. Tony's a little bit more of a skeptic. I'm in between. I'm on the fence. I'm gonna go do some more searching on my own.
It makes me wonder. It seems the Bigfoot is a descendant from a primate. But are there primates other than humans living in Georgia?
The only primates that have been in Georgia recently are humans and then whatever other primate species we bring with us. I've done a lot of field work on St. Catherine's Island on the Georgia coast, for instance, where there are free-ranging lemurs. It's a long-term experiment with ring-tailed lemurs there that they've been there, I think, since the 1980s, and that's a long-running experiment. We have the Yerkes Primate Center that's just over there, so we have captive primates here other than humans, because humans are primates. Native primates to Georgia, we'd have to go back, I think, millions of years. And I'm not a paleoprimatologist, so I'll excuse myself there on that knowledge. But it's been quite a while in the fossil record. I'm speaking as a paleontologist. Quite a while in the fossil record since we've had any primates that might have been in this part of the world.
I had searched for hours. I was hungry, tired, and still no Bigfoot. Maybe it wasn't made for us to find it, but for it to find us.
Is he real? Is he fake? We'll never know. But maybe mankind's capacity to wonder is something much more interesting, like UFOs, lights in the sky, all that stuff. We'll never quite know if it's real or not, but we'll just keep searching for Bigfoot.